The soup spoon trembles as Danny guides it toward Evelyn's lips, her tears falling silently into the bowl that's gone cold over the past 40 minutes. His knees scream against the marble floor where he's been kneeling beside her chair, his white apron stained with drops of tomato bisque that missed their mark when her hands shook too violently to hold anything steady. The entire restaurant has gone quiet, not the comfortable quiet of people enjoying their meals, but the heavy, awkward silence of strangers witnessing something intimate, something raw, something they shouldn't be seeing but can't look away from. Some of them have their phones out now, recording. Others whisper behind raised menus, their voices carrying just enough for Danny to catch fragments. Poor woman. Is that her son? Why isn't anyone with her? Danny doesn't care about the whispers or the cameras or the fact that his other tables have been waiting 15 minutes for their checks. He carefully wipes a tear from Evelyn's wrinkled cheek with a clean napkin, his voice soft as he tells her it's okay. She can take her time, there's no rush. Her table is set for 2. The second chair sits empty, the unused place setting mocking her with its pristine arrangement. That chair has been empty for 1 hour and 17 minutes. Danny knows because he's been checking his watch, hoping someone would arrive, hoping this elderly woman in her pale lavender cardigan wouldn't have to eat her birthday dinner alone. The front doors burst open with enough force that the host station rattles. A man strides in, and everything about him screams money. His suit is charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind that costs more than Danny makes in a month of double shifts. His shoes are Italian leather, clicking against the marble floor like a metronome counting down to something terrible. Preston Hartley. Danny recognizes him immediately because everyone in this city knows that face. The tech billionaire. The man who just bought 3 buildings downtown and turned them into luxury condos that regular people can't afford. His face has been on the cover of Forbes twice this year alone. Marie, the restaurant manager, practically materializes beside him, her professional smile bright and practiced, the smile she reserves for the kind of wealth that tips in hundreds. But Preston isn't looking at her. His eyes have already found the corner table, locked onto his mother, locked onto Danny kneeling there with a soup spoon raised halfway to Evelyn's mouth. Something twists across Preston's face, something dark and complicated that Danny can't quite identify. Is it rage? Shame? Horror? All 3 at once. His jaw tightens. His shoulders go rigid. He's across the restaurant in 8 long strides, Marie hurrying to keep up, her heels clicking frantically as she tries to anticipate what's about to happen. Preston stops 3 feet from the table, close enough that Danny can smell his expensive cologne, far enough that the distance feels deliberate, calculated. Danny looks up, still holding the spoon, soup dripping back into the bowl. Evelyn's whole body goes rigid. The trembling that's been constant for the past hour suddenly stops, but not because she's calm. This is the kind of stillness that comes from pure terror. The kind that makes prey animals freeze when predators approach, hoping to become invisible, hoping to disappear. Preston's jaw clenches, so hard Danny can see the muscles working beneath his skin. His hands ball into fists at his sides. The restaurant holds its breath. Conversations die mid-sentence. Silverware stops clinking against plates. Someone's phone is definitely recording now. Danny can see the red light in his peripheral vision. He starts to stand, his cramped legs protesting, words forming in his throat to explain that he was just helping, that she couldn't hold the spoon, that no one else was here, that he couldn't just let her sit there struggling and crying, and alone on what he learned was her 78th birthday. But Preston speaks first, and his voice cuts through the silence like a knife through silk, sharp and cold and devastating. How dare you humiliate her like this? The words come out frosted with contempt, each syllable precisely enunciated, a prosecutor delivering a verdict. Danny blinks, his mind stuttering over the word. Humiliate? He was helping. He was being kind. Preston's eyes bore into him with such pure disdain that Danny actually takes a step back. Feeding her like she's a child, making a spectacle of her. Do you know who I am? Do you know who she is? Danny's throat closes. The soup spoon feels like it weighs 10 pounds in his hand. He was just trying to help. That's all. Just trying to help an elderly woman who couldn't manage her dinner alone, who was crying so quietly most people didn't even notice. Evelyn reaches out with shaking fingers, trying to touch Preston's sleeve, trying to make some connection with her son. But Preston steps back. Away from her touch. Away from the table. Away from the evidence of her need. I specifically told the nursing home not to bring her to public places, he continues, his voice dropping lower, somehow colder. She can't handle it. Look at her. He gestures at his mother like she's an object, a problem to be managed. You've made her cry. You've embarrassed both of us. Danny's world tilts sideways. Embarrassed? He's been kneeling on this floor for 40 minutes, his knees aching, his other tables glaring at him, his tips for the night completely destroyed, and this man in his $1,000 suit is calling it embarrassing? Evelyn's hand drops to her lap, landing there like a dead bird. She stares at the cold soup as if it's evidence at a crime scene, proof of her inadequacy, her weakness, her failure to be the kind of mother a billionaire can be proud of. Preston pulls out his phone, the latest model, the kind Danny could never afford. I'm calling my lawyer, he announces, loud enough that everyone can hear, loud enough that the recording phones capture every word. This is elder exploitation. You probably thought you'd get a viral video out of this, didn't you? Some tips. Maybe a news story. Heartwarming waiter helps helpless old woman. His thumb hovers over the screen, ready to dial, ready to destroy Danny's life with one phone call. Danny's heart hammers against his ribs. He has a son at home. Tommy, 7 years old with asthma, and medical bills that never stop coming. He can't lose this job. He can't afford a lawyer. He can't afford anything if this man decides to crush him. His mind races through worst-case scenarios, each one more terrifying than the last. But then Evelyn speaks. Her voice is barely a whisper, so small and cracked that Danny has to strain to hear it, so broken that it makes his chest physically hurt. And what she says stops Preston's hand mid-dial, stops the entire restaurant mid-breath, changes everything in one devastating sentence. Preston, she whispers, and there's a lifetime of loneliness in those 2 syllables. This young man, he's the only person who's been kind to me in 5 years. If you're already feeling this, you need to hear what happens next. But before we continue, drop a heart in the comments if you've ever felt invisible. And if you're the type who skips subscribing, at least tell me why in the comments. I see those of you watching this without subscribing. I see you. Now let's see what Preston does next. The silence in Preston's accusation hangs in the air, but to understand how we got to this moment, to really understand what's breaking apart in this restaurant, we need to go back 6 hours. Back to a small room at Sunset Grove Care Facility where Evelyn Hartley sits in the same chair she sits in every single day, staring at the wallpaper she's memorized down to every curl and leaf. She counts the flowers, 287. Same as yesterday. Same as the day before. Same as every day for the past 5 years since the stroke left her hands with this tremor that never stops, this shaking that marks her as fragile, as someone who needs help with the simplest tasks. Her fingers fumble with the buttons on her lavender cardigan, the one she saves for special occasions. Those special occasions have become so rare she can't remember the last time she wore it. The nurses at Sunset Grove are kind enough, she supposes. They check on her, bring her medications, help her to the dining room for meals. She eats alone at a table for 6. But they're always busy, always rushing to the next resident, the next emergency, the next crisis. Tonight is her 78th birthday. The aide who helped her dress this morning said, "Happy birthday," without looking up from her phone, fingers flying across the screen, responding to someone more important, someone who mattered. Evelyn thanked her anyway, because manners matter, even when you're invisible, even when no one remembers. The call came at 4 in the afternoon, shattering the silence of her room like a gunshot. But it wasn't Preston's voice. It never is. It was his assistant, a woman named Rebecca, whose voice is always professionally pleasant and utterly impersonal. "Mr. Hartley has arranged for a car to take you to dinner tonight. 7 p.m. reservation at Marcello's." Just like that. No warm birthday wishes. No personal touch. But Evelyn's heart leapt anyway, because he remembered. Her son remembered her birthday. After 5 years of monthly phone calls that last exactly 4 minutes, calls where Preston asks how she is without really listening to the answer, after Christmases where gift baskets arrive instead of visits, after Mother's Days marked by floral arrangements with cards signed by his assistant, he remembered. The aides helped her with makeup, and she wept while they worked, mascara running before they'd even finished applying it. They exchanged glances over her head, Those pitying looks that assume she can't see, can't understand that they think she's pathetic for crying over a dinner invitation from her own son. But they don't say anything. They never do. The car that arrives at 6:45 is black and sleek, the kind of luxury vehicle that whispers wealth without shouting it. Evelyn expected Preston to be inside, waiting for her, maybe with flowers or at least a smile. But the back seat is empty except for leather that's too cold and too perfect. The driver doesn't speak during the 12-minute ride, doesn't ask about her day or comment on the weather or do any of the small human things that make a person feel seen. At Marcello's, the hostess confirms the reservation with a bright professional smile. "Table for 2. Your son will be joining you shortly," she says, leading Evelyn to a corner table with a white tablecloth and candlelight and a view of the entire restaurant. Shortly. That single word carries the weight of every broken promise, every delayed arrival, every time Preston said he'd be there and wasn't. Evelyn orders water with hands that shake so badly the hostess has to study the menu for her. The restaurant fills with people around her. Couples lean across tables, sharing bites of food and private jokes. Families celebrate with balloons and cake. Laughter rises and falls like waves. And Evelyn waits. Her trembling fingers fold the napkin, unfold it, fold it again. The waiter stops by, young with kind eyes and a genuine smile that reaches all the way up to make crinkles at the corners. His name tag says Danny. He asks if she'd like to order. "I'll wait for my son," she whispers, her voice apologetic, as if her presence is an inconvenience. Danny nods and brings bread that she can't butter because her hands won't cooperate, won't stop shaking long enough to spread anything across the surface. 8 o'clock arrives like a slap. Preston is an hour late. Not shortly. An hour. Danny checks on her again, his concern genuine and visible. She orders soup finally, her voice small and mortified by her own existence, by the trouble she's causing, by the table she's occupying when clearly no one is coming. The soup arrives and she tries. She really tries. But the spoon slips from her trembling fingers, clatters against the bowl loud enough that nearby diners glance over. Shame floods her face with heat. This is why Preston didn't want her in public places. This is why she's locked away in Sunset Grove. Because she can't even eat soup without making a scene. Danny kneels beside her chair without a moment's hesitation, his movements so smooth and natural it's like he's been waiting to help all along. "May I help?" he asks, and his voice is so gentle, so free of judgment or pity, that tears spring to her eyes. She can't speak, can only nod, and Danny feeds her soup like she's precious, like she matters, like helping her is a privilege rather than a burden. Nobody has touched her with this kind of tenderness since Preston was 7 years old. The memory crashes over her between spoonfuls, vivid and painful. Preston at 7, before the tech empire, before the money changed everything, before his father's death from a heart attack left them struggling. They were poor then, so poor that she worked 2 jobs just to keep their tiny apartment and put food on the table. She'd come home at 11 at night, exhausted down to her bones, and Preston would be waiting up for her. He'd make her grilled cheese sandwiches that were burnt on one side and raw on the other, but she ate every bite because he made them with love. He'd tell her about his day, about the kids at school, about the books he was reading, about his big dreams for the future. "When I grow up, Mom, you'll never work again," he promised with absolute certainty, with the faith only a child can have. She believed him, and he kept that promise, technically speaking. She hasn't worked in decades. The money came, more money than she ever imagined possible. But somewhere between the first million and the first billion, her son disappeared. The warmth left. The phone calls became obligations. The visits stopped altogether. Danny wipes soup from her chin with a clean napkin, and Evelyn cries not just from gratitude but from grief for the little boy who once cared, who once loved her enough to burn grilled cheese at midnight. Drop a broken heart if you've ever waited for someone who never showed. Subscribe if you want to know whether Preston ever arrives, because trust me, when he does, you won't believe what he says. And for those of you watching without subscribing, comment, "Waiting," so at least I know you're here. But while Evelyn sits in that restaurant waiting for a son who may never come, while her soup goes cold and her hope slowly dies, we need to understand the man kneeling beside her. We need to go back to that same morning, to 5:30 a.m. when Danny's alarm screams him awake in an apartment that's too cold because heat costs money they don't have. His son Tommy is already awake in the next room, and Danny can hear him coughing, that wet, rattling cough that makes Danny's stomach clench with fear every single time. He stumbles down the narrow hallway to Tommy's room, his bare feet cold on the linoleum they can't afford to replace. Tommy is sitting up in bed, clutching the dinosaur blanket his grandmother bought him before she died, and Danny presses his hand to the boy's forehead the way his own mother used to do for him. Warm, but not fever warm. Probably just the cold that's been going around Tommy's second-grade class. Tommy's eyes are bright and worried, too aware for a 7-year-old, too used to seeing his father stressed and tired. "Can I stay home today?" he asks, and the question breaks Danny's heart because he knows what Tommy really means. He means the other kids make fun of his worn-out shoes. He means he's tired of being the kid whose lunch comes from the discount shelf. He means he wants his dad to not look so exhausted all the time. But Danny has no one to watch him if he stays home. His ex-wife Sarah moved 3 states away with her new husband, a man who makes real money and doesn't work nights and weekends. His mother died last year, the last person in the world who would have helped without judgment. "You're brave," Danny says instead, forcing brightness into his voice. "Like a dinosaur. Like a T-Rex." Tommy loves dinosaurs, has loved them since he was 3, and the mention of them brings a small smile to his face even through the cough. The medical bills are spread across the kitchen counter like an accusation. Tommy's asthma treatments, the specialist visits, the inhaler that costs $80 even after insurance. $3,000 in total, and that's just from the last 6 months. Danny works double shifts, and it's still not enough. He's a good waiter, makes decent tips most nights, the kind of tips that keep the lights on and food in the fridge. But decent doesn't cover specialist visits. Decent doesn't cover emergency room trips when Tommy can't breathe. There's a second job offer waiting for him at a warehouse across town, overnight shift from midnight to 8 a.m. The money would help. The money would change everything. But it would mean he'd never see Tommy, would mean sleeping for 3 hours between dropping his son at school and starting his evening shift at the restaurant. He's done the math. He's considered it. The landlord has already knocked twice this month, his patience wearing thin, his threats getting less subtle. Danny makes Tommy scrambled eggs and toast, uses the last of the milk they have left. Grocery shopping happens Friday. If the tips are good this week, if nothing unexpected comes up, if the universe gives them just one break. Dropping Tommy at school kills him a little bit every single day. His son looks so small walking toward that building, clutching his backpack with the broken zipper that Danny keeps meaning to replace, trying so hard to be brave, to be the big kid who doesn't need his dad to walk him to the door. "Love you, Dad." Tommy calls over his shoulder, and Danny hugs him too long, holds on too tight, makes Tommy squirm and laugh nervously because the other kids are watching. And they are watching. The other parents with their nice cars and their pressed clothes, and their lives that look so much easier than Danny's. They watch the single dad, the one who drives the car with the cracked windshield and the passenger door that doesn't open from the outside. He pretends not to notice their pity, their whisper conversations, their subtle movements to keep their children from getting too close to the poor kid. Tommy runs to his classroom, and Danny sits in the parking lot for 5 full minutes, just breathing, just trying to pull himself together. His own father left when Danny was Tommy's age, just walked out one day and never came back. And Danny has sworn on everything he holds sacred that he won't do that. He'll work every hour God gives him. He'll sacrifice sleep and comfort and any kind of personal life. He'll be there. Always. The restaurant is his second home, has been for 6 years now, ever since Marie gave him a job when no one else would. This was right after the divorce, when his references were shaky and his confidence was shattered, and most restaurant managers took one look at him and saw liability written across his face. But Marie saw something different. Kindness, maybe. Reliability. The kind of person who shows up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He's never missed a shift in 6 years, never complained about the long hours or the difficult customers or the kitchen chaos that sometimes makes the dining room feel like a war zone. The other waiters like him, genuinely like him, not just tolerate him. The regulars ask for his section because he remembers their orders, their names, their stories, the little details that make people feel seen. People matter to Danny. It's as simple and as complicated as that. Tonight's shift starts like any other. Tables fill with the usual Friday evening crowd. Orders flow from dining room to kitchen and back again. The chaos hums along in its familiar rhythm. And then Danny sees her, the elderly woman at table 12, sitting alone at a table set for two, and she's been alone for over an hour now. Her hands shake so badly, she can't even manage to butter the bread that's been sitting in front of her, going stale while she waits for someone who clearly isn't coming. Something in Danny's chest cracks wide open. She reminds him of his mother, of those last terrible months when the cancer had taken everything from her, including her ability to feed herself. He'd come to her apartment after his shifts, still in his work clothes, and help her eat dinner, and she'd cry from gratitude and humiliation in equal measure. He swore to her then, holding her frail hand, that if he ever saw someone struggling alone like she had struggled, he would help them. No hesitation, no excuses, just help. So when Evelyn's soup arrives and her trembling hands can't hold the spoon, when it clatters against the bowl and shame floods her face, Danny doesn't think about his other tables or his tips or what anyone might say. He just kneels. If this is hitting you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you believe good people still exist, because Danny's about to face a choice that will test everything. And to everyone watching who hasn't subscribed yet, comment, Danny, and tell me why you're still on the fence. I'm genuinely curious. But to truly understand the man who just accused Danny of humiliation, to understand the ice in his voice and the rage in his eyes, we need to step into Preston's world that same evening. His penthouse overlooks the city like a throne room, 63 floors above the people who can barely afford rent in buildings he owns. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the skyline like a painting, marble floors reflect the sunset in shades of gold and blood orange, and the art on his walls is worth more than most people will earn in their entire lives. He stands at those windows with his phone pressed to his ear, closing a deal that will make him another $12 million before the weekend ends. The caller laughs at something Preston said, some quip about market volatility, and Preston laughs back but feels nothing. Humor is just another tool, another way to make people comfortable before you take what you need from them. Success is performance. He learned that years ago. His third wife left last year, walked away with $30 million in the divorce settlement, and Preston barely noticed the empty space she left behind. Money replenishes itself. People are replaceable. That's the truth. No one wants to admit, but everyone understands. He checks his Rolex, the one that costs more than a new car. 7:15. There's something nagging at the back of his mind, something he's supposed to remember. He's supposed to be somewhere. What was it? His assistant Rebecca knocks on his office door, and even her knock sounds judgmental somehow. The car took your mother to Marcello's 45 minutes ago, she says, her voice professionally neutral but her eyes anything but. The reservation was for 7. Preston's stomach drops like an elevator with cut cables. His mother. Her birthday. Shit. He meant to cancel that reservation. He meant to do a lot of things. Send flowers, maybe. A card with some generic message about wishing her well. He always means to do these things, plans to do them, but then meetings run long and deals need closing and suddenly it's next week and the moment has passed. Rebecca is watching him with those eyes that see too much, that judge too accurately. She's worked for him for 3 years and she doesn't like him. He can tell. None of them do. His employees respect his money, fear his temper, tolerate his demands because the salary is too good to walk away from. But like him? No. They don't like him. He doesn't need to be liked. He needs to be powerful. Powerful people don't worry about being liked. The drive to Marcello's takes 12 minutes through traffic that parts for his car like the Red Sea. He could call right now, cancel, send an expensive gift basket, make some excuse about an emergency board meeting. But something makes him go, something he can't quite name. Guilt, maybe, though he's gotten very good at ignoring that particular emotion. Or curiosity about whether his mother actually showed up, whether she's still waiting, or whether she finally got the message that he's too busy for sentiment. His mother, the woman who raised him alone after his father dropped dead from a heart attack when Preston was 9 years old. The woman who worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, who came home at midnight smelling like coffee and exhaustion, who sacrificed everything so he could have piano lessons and math tutors and eventually a scholarship to an Ivy League school. He repaid her by getting rich and getting distant. When did that happen? When did the calls get shorter and the visits stop altogether. It happens slowly, like ice forming on a lake. Each success made him busier. Each million made him colder. Each year took him further from the boy who used to make her burnt, grilled cheese sandwiches. Until 5 years ago when she had the stroke, when her hands started trembling and her words came out slurred and she couldn't live alone anymore. He put her in Sunset Grove, the best facility money could buy, private room, 24-hour nursing staff, gourmet meals. Everything paid for in full. What more could she possibly want? He parks illegally right in front of Marcello's. Let them tow it. He'll buy the tow company if they bother him about it. Inside, the restaurant smells like money and garlic and the kind of privilege that Preston barely notices anymore. He expects his mother to be gone already, either angry enough to leave or hurt enough to give up. But instead he sees her at the corner table, and what he sees makes his blood run cold and then immediately boiling hot. She's crying, actually crying in public, and a waiter, some nobody in a stained white apron, is kneeling beside her like a supplicant before a queen, feeding her soup like she's a helpless infant who can't manage basic human functions. People are watching. He can see them pretending not to stare, can see the phones coming out, the subtle recording beginning. His mother being spoon-fed in a public restaurant while strangers capture it for social media, for the internet, for his competitors to find and mock. Rage floods through him, so pure and hot it almost feels good. How dare the restaurant staff allow this spectacle? How dare his mother put herself in this position, put him in this position? He storms across the restaurant, his expensive shoes announcing his approach. The humiliation burns in his chest. By tomorrow morning this could be everywhere. Tech billionaires, mother hand-fed by waiter. His competitors would love it. His board members would start whispering about his judgment, his priorities, his weakness. Because that's what this looks like. Weakness. And in his world, weakness attracts predators. His mother looks weak, sitting there with tears on her face and soup on her chin. Which means he looks weak by association. The waiter looks up at him with those earnest, stupid eyes, the kind of eyes that belong to someone who thinks helping people matters more than optics, more than reputation, more than the careful image Preston has spent decades building. Preston's practiced speech dies in his throat, all the reasonable explanations he prepared during the drive. What comes out instead is cold fury, sharp and cutting and designed to wound. Because fury is easier than the other thing twisting in his chest. The thing that feels suspiciously like shame. Hit like if you've ever felt caught between who you are and who you used to be. Subscribe because what Preston says next will either redeem him or destroy him, and I promise you won't see it coming. Non-subscribers, drop a thinking face emoji and tell me, do you think Preston can change, or is he too far gone? Evelyn's words hang in the air like smoke after a gunshot. The only person who's been kind to me in 5 years. Preston's face flushes red, then white, then red again as the blood drains and returns in waves of emotion he hasn't felt in years. Danny stands slowly, his legs cramping from 40 minutes of kneeling on marble floor, and he can feel every eye in the restaurant burning into his back. Other diners lean forward in their seats, straining to hear what happens next, their own meals forgotten in favor of this real-time drama unfolding before them. Marie appears at the edge of the scene, her manager instincts calculating damage control, wondering if she should intervene or let this play out. Preston's phone is still in his hand, his thumb still hovering over the screen where his lawyer's number waits to be dialed. But his mother's words have hit something deep inside him, cracked something he thought was sealed shut forever. He looks at her now, really looks at her, for the first time in years. When did she get so small? When did her shoulders curve inward like that? When did those tremors start? The stroke did that. 5 years ago. He wasn't there for it. He was in Singapore closing a deal worth $40 million, while his mother lay in a hospital bed, learning how to speak again. "Mother, you're making a scene," Preston says, and his voice is quieter now, but still sharp, still controlled, still the voice of a man who's used to commanding rooms full of powerful people. Evelyn flinches at the word mother, and Danny sees it, sees how that formal title cuts her deeper than any insult could. When did Preston stop calling her mom? When did the warmth drain out of that simple word? Danny steps back, giving them space because this is their moment, their reckoning, but he doesn't leave. Something tells him Evelyn needs a witness here. Needs someone to see this, to remember it, to make sure she's not alone in whatever happens next. Preston continues, his voice gaining strength as he falls back on the defense he's built over years. I pay for Sunset Grove, the best care facility in the state, 24-hour nursing staff, private room, gourmet meals, physical therapy. You have everything you need. The words sound reasonable, logical, the kind of argument that would win in a boardroom. But Evelyn's lips tremble, and her voice comes out barely above a whisper. Everything but you. The restaurant might as well be empty for how intimate this moment feels. This is only them now. Mother and son. The distance between them measured not in feet, but in years of phone calls that never came and visits that never happened. And everyone watching, bearing witness to a family breaking in public. Preston's jaw tightens and he shifts his weight, his expensive shoes squeaking slightly on the floor. I call every month, he says, and there's something defensive in his tone now, something almost childlike. I sent you an iPad for Christmas. Top of the line. Evelyn nods slowly, and when she speaks her voice is steady in a way that's somehow more devastating than tears. You called 16 times last year. For minutes average. I timed them. The specificity of it cuts through Preston's defenses like a knife through butter. Danny watches Preston blink, watches him process this information, this evidence of his mother sitting in her room with a stopwatch measuring the scraps of attention he throws her way. She timed his calls. And the iPad. Evelyn continues, her trembling hands folding in her lap. I don't know how to use it. I asked the nurses to help me set up a video call to you. Multiple times. You never answered. Preston's finger hovers over his phone, and Danny can see the memory flooding back into his face. He's received video call requests. Multiple requests from a number he didn't recognize. He declined them all without a second thought. Spam, he assumed. Scammers trying to reach him. His assistant Rebecca handles all his personal calls now, screens everything, and he never questioned why an elderly woman might be trying to reach him through video chat. Danny sees it then, sees the exact moment Preston understands what he's done. The flash of realization that crosses the billionaire's face is painful to witness. Horror and shame mixing together into something that makes him look suddenly younger, suddenly vulnerable, suddenly human. All those declined calls. His mother on the other end, probably dressed up for the video chat, probably with her hair done and makeup applied by the nurses, trying to see her son's face. Rejected by technology and distance and his own assumptions. Preston's hand drops to his side. The phone slips back into his pocket like it weighs 1,000 pounds. I didn't know it was you, he says, and his voice is so quiet Danny almost misses it, so broken that several nearby diners look away from the intimacy of it. Evelyn smiles, and it's the saddest smile Danny has ever seen. Sad and knowing, and full of a love that has survived years of neglect. I know, she says gently. You don't know a lot of things about me anymore. Like how I can't hold a spoon. Or that today is my birthday. Or that I still love you even though you've forgotten how to love me back. The words land like physical blows, and Danny watches Preston's armor crack and crumble. The billionaire's eyes shine with something that might be tears, might be fury at himself, might be both at once. Around them the restaurant has become a confessional, a church, a place where strangers bear witness to family unraveling and maybe, just maybe, beginning to stitch itself back together in real time. Marie signals to the other staff to give them privacy, but no one actually leaves because they can't, because this is the kind of moment that reminds people what matters beneath all the money and status and daily survival. Preston reaches for the chair, the empty chair that's been waiting for him for over an hour, and he sits down slowly like his legs won't hold him anymore. His expensive suit looks ridiculous next to his mother's modest lavender cardigan, his Rolex absurd next to her trembling hands. I forgot your birthday, he says, and it's not an excuse or a justification. It's a confession, pure and simple and devastating. Evelyn nods. I know. Double tap if your heart just broke. Subscribe if you need to see whether this family can heal, because we're only halfway through the story and it gets more intense. To everyone lurking without subscribing, comment healing if you think they can fix this, or broken if it's too late. Let's see what you really think. Danny should return to his other tables. He knows this. He's got 6 orders backing up in the kitchen that need to be run. 2 tables gesturing for water refills with that particular brand of polite impatience that comes right before complaints. and a couple at table 7 who've been holding their credit card in the air for the past 3 minutes waiting for their check. His tips tonight are going to be terrible. He's already done the math in his head and it's not looking good. Not when he needs every dollar for Tommy's medical bills and the rent that's already 5 days late. But he can't leave Evelyn and Preston. He physically cannot make his feet move away from this corner of the restaurant where something fragile is forming, something delicate and important that could shatter if he's not there to witness it, to guard it, to make sure it actually happens. Marie catches his eye from across the dining room, and for a moment he thinks she's going to tell him to get back to work, to stop neglecting his section for a table that isn't even ordering anymore. But instead she nods slightly, just once, and he understands. She gets it. In the 6 years he's worked for her, she's learned that Danny has instincts about people, about moments that matter, and she's learned to trust those instincts even when they don't make business sense. Let him work, her nod says. The other wait staff have already started covering his tables without being asked. They've all been watching this unfold. They all care now too, invested in this story playing out in real time. That's the thing about witnessing someone's pain, about seeing people at their most vulnerable and broken. It makes you invested. It makes you human again. Preston is trying, and Danny can see the effort in every stiff movement, every carefully chosen word. He's asking Evelyn questions, and they're awkward questions, formal questions, the kind you'd ask a business associate rather than your own mother. "How is Sunset Grove treating you?" he asks. "And are the nurses kind? And is the food adequate?" Each question sounds like it's been pulled from him with pliers, like he's forgotten how to have a normal conversation with the woman who raised him. Evelyn answers softly, politely, her voice small and careful like she's being interviewed by a journalist rather than talking to her son. Because that's what Preston is now, a stranger who happens to share her blood and her last name. Danny busies himself nearby, pretending to clear adjacent tables that don't actually need clearing, wiping down surfaces that are already clean. He's not eavesdropping, not exactly. He's guarding, making sure Preston doesn't suddenly remember an important meeting and bolt for the door. Making sure Evelyn isn't alone in this. Not again. Then Evelyn's hand trembles as she reaches for her water glass, and Danny sees it happening in slow motion like a scene from a movie. She can't grip it properly. The tremor is worse now, amplified by stress and emotion and the weight of this conversation. The glass tips and water spills across the white tablecloth in a spreading stain, dripping over the edge onto her lavender cardigan, the one she wore special for tonight. She gasps, mortified, her face flushing with shame. Preston jerks back instinctively, an automatic movement to save his expensive suit from the water, and Danny sees the flash of something cross Evelyn's face. Not anger. Worse. Resignation. The look of someone who expected exactly this reaction. But Danny is already moving. He's there with a stack of clean napkins before Preston can even process what happened, soaking up the water, telling Evelyn in that gentle voice he uses with Tommy when his son spills things that it's okay. Accidents happen to everyone. It's just water. Let him help her to the restroom to dry off properly. He offers his arm and she takes it, grateful and embarrassed, and so small beside him that he wants to wrap her in a blanket and promise her that everything will be okay, even though he has no right to make such promises. In the quiet hallway leading to the restroom, away from the watching eyes and the tension at the table, Evelyn whispers, "You should go back to your work." "I'm fine. I'm always fine." But Danny shakes his head firmly. "I'm exactly where I need to be," he tells her, and he means it with every fiber of his being. She studies his face with watery eyes that have seen too much disappointment, and when she speaks her voice cracks around the edges. "You have kind eyes," she says, "like my Preston used to have when he was little, before his father died, before the money came. He was so kind then." Her voice breaks completely. "I lost both of them. First my husband to a heart attack, then my son to wealth and success. One to death, one to something worse than death. And I don't know which hurt more." Danny's throat tightens painfully. He thinks of Tommy asleep at home, thinks of a second job he's considering, thinks about how easy it would be to let money and exhaustion and survival mode turn him into someone who forgets what matters. He makes a promise to himself right there in that hallway, silent but binding. "Never. I'll never let success, or stress, or anything else make me forget what matters. Never. They return to the table, and Preston is on his phone, because of course he is, because some habits are too deeply ingrained to break in one conversation. But he puts it down when he sees them approaching, slides it back into his pocket like it's something he's ashamed of. Danny helps Evelyn sit, his hands gentle and sure, and Preston watches a small act of kindness with something that looks suspiciously like envy on his face. Like he wishes he knew how to be gentle anymore. Like he wishes he could remember how to touch his mother without it being awkward. "Thank you," Preston says to Danny, and they're the first civil words that have passed between them since he arrived. The first words that aren't accusations or defenses. Just thank you. Danny nods in acknowledgement. "She's special," he says simply, and Preston's eyes return to his mother, really looking at her, seeing her. "I know," Preston says quietly, and his voice carries the weight of years of regret. "I used to know that better." Silence settles over the table. Not comfortable silence, not the easy quiet of people who know each other well. But not hostile either. Progress, Danny thinks. Fragile progress. His work here isn't done, but this moment belongs to them, not to him. He steps back, returns to his section to deal with the backup of orders, and the frustrated customers, and the tips he's lost tonight. But he checks over his shoulder every 30 seconds. Just in case. Just to make sure. Leave a heart if you believe in second chances. Subscribe if you want to see where this goes, because Danny's kindness is about to create a ripple effect he never saw coming. And non-subscribers, comment and tell me honestly, when's the last time you helped someone who couldn't help you back? I'll wait. Danny's shift ends at 10 o'clock, and he's doing calculations in his head as he walks to the break room, the kind of math that keeps him up at night. Tips tonight aren't great. The hour he spent with Evelyn probably cost him $100 in neglected tables, in lost turnover, in frustrated customers who left smaller tips or no tips at all. Worth it, he tells himself. Some things matter more than money. But then reality presses in like water against a dam. There's Tommy at home with a babysitter who charges by the hour. There's rent that's already late. There's medical bills stacked on the kitchen counter like a paper monument to everything he can't afford. He counts his cash in the break room with the door closed, his hands slightly shaking as he smooths out the crumpled bills. $63. Not enough. Never enough. Tomorrow he'll call about that warehouse job, the overnight shift from midnight to 8 in the morning. He'll work it, then sleep for 3 hours, then pick up Tommy from school, then come back here for the dinner shift. He can survive on 3 hours of sleep. People do it every day. He's done it before. He'll do it again. Marie knocks on the break room door, and Danny's heart sinks before she even speaks. "Table 12 wants to see you," she says, and her voice is carefully neutral in a way that makes his stomach clench. Preston. It has to be Preston. Now that the public moment has passed, now that the cameras have stopped recording, and the other diners have left, Preston is probably ready to threaten him properly. Away from witnesses. Away from anyone who might see the billionaire being cruel to a waiter who was just trying to help. Danny straightens his shoulders, pulls his spine up straight the way his mother taught him. "Walk into trouble with your head up," she used to say. He walks back out into the dining room and stops short. Evelyn and Preston are still there, the only 2 people left in a restaurant that's closing around them. The other tables have been cleared, their candles extinguished, their chairs pushed in and waiting for tomorrow. But table 12 is still alive with conversation. They're talking. Actually talking. Not the stiff, formal questions from before, but real conversation, voices rising and falling naturally. Evelyn is crying again, but it's different now. Relief crying. The kind of tears that come when something you thought was dead shows signs of life. And Preston is holding her hand. That shaking, trembling hand that can't hold a soup spoon. He's holding it. "Danny." Evelyn calls him over, and her voice is stronger now, steadier, like something has been restored to her. "My son wants to speak with you." Here it comes. The lawsuit threat. The professional consequences. The destruction of everything Danny has worked to build. He approaches the table, preparing himself for whatever Preston is about to say, already planning his defense, already thinking about lawyers he can't afford. Preston stands and they're the same height, but somehow Preston's presence still dwarfs him because money does that, creates its own gravitational pull, its own atmosphere. "I need to apologize," Preston says, and Danny blinks because those are not the words he expected. "Wait. What?" I misjudged the situation completely. And I misjudged you. You showed my mother more compassion in 1 hour than I've shown her in 5 years. That's inexcusable. On my part, not yours. The words sound rehearsed, like Preston practiced them during the past hour, worked out the phrasing in his head. But his eyes tell a different truth. They're red-rimmed now, human now, stripped of that cold billionaire calculation that walked through the door earlier. He means it. He actually means every word. My mother tells me you have a son, Preston continues, and Danny tenses immediately. Don't bring Tommy into this. Don't you dare bring my son into whatever this is. But Preston's voice stays gentle. 7 years old. She noticed your phone background when you checked the time earlier. She pays attention to people like that. Really pays attention. I used to be that way. I forgot how. He pulls out his phone, swipes through his photos, and shows Danny the screen. A photo. Old, judging by the quality and the faded colors. Young Preston, maybe 8 years old, standing with a woman Danny recognizes as a younger version of Evelyn outside a tiny apartment building. Both of them are grinning despite clothes that are obviously worn and cheap, despite the cracked concrete and peeling paint behind them. That was us, Preston says quietly, before everything changed. Danny studies the photo and sees the resemblance between that little boy and the man standing before him. But more than that, he sees the love. It's obvious and unguarded and real, radiating from that frozen moment like heat. I was you once, Preston says, and his voice drops, so low Danny has to lean in to hear. Working minimum wage jobs, worried sick about my mom, trying to survive day by day. Then my software company took off. Made me rich beyond anything I'd ever imagined. And I thought success meant never struggling again. Never needing anyone. Never being vulnerable. He locks his phone, the photo disappearing. I was wrong. Success isolated me. Made me cold. Made me cruel. Tonight, watching you help her, watching you kneel on that floor and feed her soup like she mattered, I remembered. I remembered what actually matters in this life. He extends his hand toward Danny. Not commanding now. Not demanding. Asking. Danny shakes it, his rough waiter's hand meeting Preston's soft billionaire palm, still completely unsure where this conversation is going but feeling something shift in the air between them. Smash that like button if you feel this shift happening. Subscribe because what Preston does next will shock you, and it will restore your faith in humanity. Non-subscribers, you've made it this far. Why not subscribe now? Comment faith if you're feeling it, or doubt if you think he'll disappoint. Show me where you stand. Marie has sent everyone else home by now. The other waiters and kitchen staff have clocked out, counted their tips, said their goodnights. She's alone at the register counting out the night's receipts, pretending not to listen to the conversation happening at table 12 while she nurses a cup of coffee that's gone cold. Evelyn watches Preston, and Danny with something that looks like cautious hope blooming on her face, the kind of hope that's been disappointed so many times it's learned to protect itself. Preston clears his throat, straightens his shoulders like he's about to deliver a pitch in a boardroom. I want to hire you, he says, and Danny's stomach drops through the floor. I have a job, Danny says carefully, trying to figure out where this is going, what trap might be hidden in those words. Preston shakes his head quickly. Not as a waiter. As my mother's companion. Full-time. The words don't make sense at first. Danny's mind reels trying to process them, trying to understand what Preston is actually offering. I don't understand, he says honestly. Preston's words come faster now, like he's been thinking about this for the past hour, working out the details while he sat there holding his mother's hand. Sunset Grove is adequate. The facility is good, the staff is professional, the care is competent. But she's alone there. The nurses care for her body. They make sure she takes her medications and eats her meals and gets to her physical therapy appointments. But nobody cares for her spirit. She needs someone who actually sees her. Like you saw her tonight. The offer crystallizes as Preston talks, becomes real and concrete and absolutely insane. $70,000 a year. Full benefits. Health insurance. The real kind. The kind that actually covers things. The kind that would pay for Tommy's asthma treatments without co-pays or deductibles or medical bills that pile up on kitchen counters. Flexible hours, so Danny could still be there for Tommy, could still pick him up from school and help with homework and be present in his son's life. You'd spend time with her, Preston explains, his voice gaining confidence as he lays out the vision. Eat meals together. Take her places she wants to go. Help her with daily tasks when she needs it. Talk to her. Listen to her. Be her friend. Danny's head spins. $70,000. That's more than double what he makes waiting tables, even with good tips. That's Tommy's medical bills paid in full. That's security. That's breathing room. That's the difference between survival and actually living. But something nags at him, something that doesn't quite add up. Why me? He asks. You don't know me. You could hire a professional caregiver, someone with credentials and references. Preston's answer is simple and devastating in its honesty. Because you already do it for free. Because in the 40 minutes I watched you with her tonight, she smiled more than I've seen her smile in 5 years. I can't buy that. I've tried. Money can't create genuine kindness or real human connection. But apparently I can hire it. Danny looks at Evelyn, and she's glowing like someone turned a light on inside her. Hope has transformed her face, erased years from her features. Only if you want a dear, she says quickly, her words tumbling over each other. Don't feel obligated. Preston means well, but he sometimes makes grand gestures without thinking them through, and I don't want you to feel pressured into. I always mean well, Preston interrupts, but his voice is gentle now, almost teasing. I just execute poorly. It's the most honest thing he said all night, the most vulnerable admission, and Evelyn laughs. It's a small sound, surprised and delighted, like she forgot her son could make her laugh. When was the last time Preston made his mother laugh? He smiles too, uncertain and unpracticed, like he's remembering how facial expressions work, like he's rediscovering muscles he forgot he had. Danny sees it then, sees what's really happening here. This isn't just a job offer. This isn't a transaction. This is a lifeline thrown by a drowning man. Preston is hiring Danny to teach him how to love his mother again, to show him by example how to be present, how to care, how to see another human being as a person rather than an obligation. I need to think about it, Danny says, because this is too big to decide in a moment, too life-changing to agree to without consideration. $70,000 would change everything for him and Tommy. Would mean Tommy gets the medical care he needs without Danny having to choose between rent and prescriptions. Would mean Danny could be present in his son's life instead of working double shifts and overnight warehouse jobs. But leaving Marcello's means leaving Marie, the woman who gave him a chance when no one else would, who saw something in him worth believing in. It means leaving the regulars who request his section, the familiar rhythms of restaurant life, the identity he's built for himself over 6 years. Preston nods, understanding. Of course. Take a few days. Think it through. I'll have my assistant send over the formal offer with all the details. He slides a business card across the table, heavy embossed stock that probably costs more per card than Danny's entire box of personal checks. Of course it does. Call me directly, Preston says. Any questions? Any concerns? I mean that. Then his voice drops, becomes quieter and more vulnerable. I'm trying to do better. She deserves better than what I've given her. And frankly, you and your son deserve better than struggling to survive. Marie appears with Evelyn's coat draped over her arm. We're closing, she says, her voice kind but firm, the voice of someone who's been managing restaurants long enough to know when it's time to send people home. Preston helps his mother stand, supporting her elbow, and the role reversal is awkward and unpracticed, but he's genuinely trying. Danny walks them to the door, holding it open against the cool night air. Preston's driver pulls up in that black car, sleek and impersonal and expensive. But Preston helps Evelyn into the back seat with careful hands, making sure her coat doesn't catch in the door, making sure she's comfortable before he closes it. Before leaving, Evelyn reaches out and touches Danny's cheek with her trembling fingers. Thank you for seeing me, she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. For making me feel human again. Danny's eyes burn with tears he refuses to let fall. You are human, he tells her fiercely. Don't ever forget that. As the car pulls away into the night, Marie comes to stand beside him in the doorway. You're going to take the job, she says, and it's not a question. Danny doesn't answer, but they both know the truth. If you're crying, you're not alone. Hit like and subscribe if you believe kindness is its own currency. Non-subscribers, you've watched this whole story unfold. What's stopping you? Comment, subscribed, when you finally do it, or still thinking if you need more convincing. Let's see those numbers move. Tommy is finally asleep. It took until 10:30 tonight, the cough rattling in his small chest while Danny sat beside his bed rubbing his back and whispering that everything would be okay, even though he wasn't sure it would be. Now Danny sits alone at the kitchen table with Preston's business card in front of him like a tarot card predicting his future. The medical bills surrounded on all sides, a paper fortress of debt and desperation, $3,000 that might as well be $3 million for how impossible it feels to pay. The math is brutally simple when he forces himself to look at it honestly. Take the job and get security, healthcare that actually works, stability for Tommy, breathing room for the first time in years. Don't take the job and keep honor, familiarity, the pride of making it on his own terms. But pride doesn't treat asthma. Honor doesn't pay rent. Pride doesn't put food on the table, or keep the lights on, or stop the landlord from knocking. He picks up his phone to call Preston, then puts it down because it feels too enormous. Picks it up again because Tommy deserves better than this constant struggle. Puts it down because leaving Marie feels like betrayal after everything she's done for him. She told him she'd understand if he left. "You'd be stupid not to take this," she said in that blunt way of hers. "And I didn't hire you for stupid." But understanding doesn't make leaving easier. The phone rings and Danny jumps, his heart hammering. Preston's name lights up the screen. At 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night. Danny answers, his voice uncertain. "I know it's late," Preston says, and his voice sounds completely different from 3 days ago. Raw. Stripped of all that billionaire confidence. "My mother had a bad night. She fell trying to get to the bathroom around 9. She's okay, just bruised. Nothing broken, but she was alone when it happened. The nurse found her 20 minutes later. The silence that follows is heavy and accusatory in its emptiness, thick with all the things Preston isn't saying about those 20 minutes his mother spent on the floor alone and afraid. "I'm flying to Seattle tomorrow for a conference. For days. She'll be alone again while I'm gone. And I'm sitting here in this empty penthouse realizing that she's always alone. Every day. Every night. Always." Preston's voice cracks, actually breaks in the middle of a sentence, and Danny hears something he never expected to hear from a billionaire. Desperation. "I can't do this anymore. The distance. The pretending I'm too busy for her. The guilt that never goes away no matter how much money I throw at the problem. I need help. She needs help. Please." It's the please that does it. That single word from a man who probably hasn't said it sincerely in years. Danny closes his eyes and sees Evelyn's face at that restaurant table 3 nights ago, her trembling hands struggling with a soup spoon, her tears of gratitude for the simplest act of human kindness. He sees Tommy sleeping in the next room, finally peaceful, because for once they could afford the good medicine instead of the generic that barely works. He sees his future splitting into 2 distinct paths, the safe path that Preston is offering and the familiar path he's been walking for 6 years. They're not the same path. They never were. "I'll do it," Danny says, and the words come out steady and sure. But on one condition. Preston's breath catches audibly. "Anything. Name it. Whatever you need." Danny's voice firms up, takes on an authority he didn't know he possessed. "You don't just hire me and disappear. You call her every week. Real calls, not 4-minute obligation calls. You visit monthly, in person. No excuses about conferences or deals. You remember her birthday and every other important day. I'm not replacing you. I'm not letting you off the hook. I'm helping you learn how to be her son again." The silence stretches, so long Danny thinks maybe Preston has hung up, maybe he's crossed a line, maybe the billionaire is offended that a waiter would dare make demands. But then Preston speaks, and his voice sounds solemn and binding like he's taking a vow. "Yes, all of that. I promise. Every word." He takes a shaky breath. "My assistant will send the contract tomorrow morning. Start date is flexible, whenever you can. And Danny, yeah, thank you for holding me accountable, for not just taking the money and looking the other way. No one does that anymore. No one tells me when I'm wrong." They hang up, and Danny sits in his dark kitchen, listening to Tommy breathe through the baby monitor he still uses even though his son is 7 because the asthma makes him paranoid about every sound. He's just changed both their lives with one phone call. It's terrifying and exhilarating and feels absolutely right in a way few things in his life have felt right. He texts Marie because she deserves to know first. Taking the job. 2 weeks' notice. Her reply comes back almost instantly like she's been waiting for this message. 1 week. Go help that woman. Some things can't wait. He writes his resignation letter on a napkin for Marcello's because he doesn't have proper paper, and there's something poetic about that. Something fitting. Thanks Marie for giving him a chance when no one else would, for believing in him, for teaching him that management can be kind. Promises to visit because he means it. Then he does something he's been putting off. He calls Sunset Grove and asks to speak to the night nurse. Asks her to check on Evelyn, make sure she's comfortable after the fall. She's sleeping now. The nurse says, her voice kind. But she's been talking about you all day. The kind waiter from the restaurant. She calls you. She says you're going to be her friend. Danny smiles through tears he didn't expect, his vision blurring. Tell her I said yes, he says, his voice breaking. Tell her she won't be alone anymore. When he finally goes to bed that night, exhausted and anxious and hopeful all at once, he dreams of his mother. She's young and healthy like she was before the cancer, standing in sunshine, smiling that proud smile she used to give him when he did something right. You did good, baby, she says. You did real good. He wakes up at dawn knowing it's true. This is it, the moment everything changes. Like this video if you're feeling emotional. Subscribe if you believe the story matters, if you believe kindness still wins. Non-subscribers, this is your last chance before the ending. Comment, yes, when you finally subscribe. Or comment, why not? And tell me what's holding you back. I read every single comment. 6 months have passed since that night at Marcello's, and Evelyn sits in the garden at Sunset Grove with afternoon sun warm on her face, painting her skin gold. Danny sits beside her on the wooden bench, reading aloud from the book she requested this morning, Pride and Prejudice, her favorite since she was a girl. His voice rises and falls with the rhythm of Austen's prose, while Tommy plays nearby in the grass, collecting dandelions with a serious concentration only a 7-year-old can muster. Grandma Evelyn, look, he calls out, running over with a fistful of yellow flowers. Dinosaur flowers. She laughs, and it's the sound Danny lives for now, that easy, genuine laughter that comes so naturally it's hard to believe there was a time when she rarely smiled at all. Her hands still tremble when she reaches out to accept the dandelions, the tremor that started with the stroke and never fully left. But she's learned to manage it, learned to work with her body instead of fighting against it. Danny helps when she needs it, brings her water when her grip isn't strong enough, steadies her elbow on uneven ground. But he steps back when she doesn't need help, lets her do things herself, maintains her dignity while being ready to support. They found their rhythm over these 6 months. Tuesdays and Thursdays are museum days where they walk slowly through galleries, and Evelyn tells stories about the art she's seen in her 78 years. Wednesdays are lunch at Marcello's where the entire staff greets her by name, and Marie always saves them the best table. Fridays are Tommy days when he spreads his homework across Evelyn's room, and she tells him stories about Preston's childhood, about the little boy who used to make her burnt grilled cheese sandwiches and promise her the world. Preston visits every Sunday without fail. Religiously. He's canceled 3 major conferences to keep that commitment, told his assistant that Sunday afternoons are blocked off forever, non-negotiable. He's learning to be a son again, and it's slow and clumsy and sometimes painfully awkward, but it's genuine. Last week he brought his current girlfriend, a pediatric surgeon named Claire with kind eyes and a real smile, the kind of woman who asks Evelyn questions and actually listens to the answers. Evelyn approved, and Preston noticed that approval, glowed from it like a child seeking his mother's blessing. He's even considering moving his main office closer to the city, talks about hybrid schedules, and working from anywhere. What he means, but doesn't quite say, yet is working closer to her. Danny watches these Sunday visits like a guardian angel hovering at the edges. He's always ready to support, always prepared to intervene if old patterns emerge, if Preston starts checking his phone too much or making excuses to leave early. But mostly he just watches a family repair itself stitch by careful stitch, watches a relationship that was dead find its way back to life. Marie visits monthly now, makes the drive from the city with gossip from the restaurant, and treats Evelyn like the cherished regular she's become. The staff at Marcello sends cards on holidays, asks Danny how she's doing when he stops by to visit his old coworkers. Other residents at Sunset Grove have noticed the change in Evelyn, noticed her brightness and her engagement, and the way she seems to glow now. Several have asked Danny quietly if he might spend time with them too, if he has room in his schedule for one more lonely person who needs to be seen. He's working on a proposal with Preston to expand the companion program, to hire people like Danny who see the elderly as human beings rather than burdens. People with kind eyes and patient hearts. Preston is funding the entire thing personally, his guilt transformed into purpose, into something that might actually help others. He's even started therapy, told Evelyn over dinner last Tuesday with tears in his eyes. She cried too, and he held her trembling hand through it. Tommy's asthma is controlled now in a way it never was before. The good insurance that came with Danny's job means preventative care and specialists and peace of mind instead of emergency room visits and crushing medical bills. Tommy asks about Grandma Evelyn constantly. That's what he calls her now. The grandmother he never had because Danny's mother died and Sarah's parents want nothing to do with their grandson. Evelyn teaches him card games and tells him stories and spoils him in reasonable ways that make Danny smile. Preston bought Tommy a telescope last week, carried it into Evelyn's room wrapped in shiny paper. For the future scientist, he said, and it's the first gift Preston has given anyone that wasn't money or obligation. It was thought. It was care. Danny frames these moments in his memory like photographs, holds them close. This is what he fought for. Not the $70,000 salary, or the health insurance, or the financial security, though those things matter. This. Connection. Family built from broken pieces. Love in its messy, imperfect, beautiful forms. As sunset paints the sky in shades of orange and pink and deep purple, Evelyn turns to Danny with tears shining in her eyes. "You saved my life," she says simply, and her voice is steady and sure. Danny shakes his head, smiling. "You gave my life meaning," he corrects gently. "I just showed up." She smiles back, and it's a smile that holds wisdom and gratitude and wholeness. "Showing up is everything," she says. Preston arrives for Sunday dinner right on time, carrying flowers he picked out himself, real flowers not ordered by his assistant. He kisses his mother's cheek, ruffles Tommy's hair with affection that's becoming natural, shakes Danny's hand like they're brothers. They walk to the dining room together, this mismatched family built from brokenness and kindness, and one waiter's decision to kneel beside a crying woman. Later tonight, Danny will text Marie a simple message. "We're okay. All of us." And she'll respond with a heart emoji because some things don't need more words than that. In the dining room, Evelyn raises her water glass with trembling but steady enough hands. "To second chances," she toasts, and they all raise their glasses and drink. Outside the window, stars begin to emerge in the darkening sky. The world keeps spinning. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. But here, right now, in this moment, everything is exactly as it should be. Love survived. Kindness won. And that's enough. If this story touched you, prove it. Like this video and subscribe to Olivia the Storyteller. We share stories like this every single week. Stories that matter. Stories about real human connection. Don't be the person who watches and feels everything and then disappears without subscribing. That's like watching a beautiful sunset and refusing to remember it. Subscribe so you never miss the next story. And to those of you who still won't subscribe, comment below and tell me why. I genuinely want to understand. What's stopping you from joining this community? Let's talk about it. Because stories like this, they're meant to be shared. Don't just consume, participate. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Be part of something that reminds us all why kindness matters. Subscribe to Olivia the Storyteller now.